If you ever felt like your journey wasn't your journey, that it wasn't your own, this conversation is for you. I'm talking with Tatyana Zlotsky, the CEO of A Place for Mom, and a great old friend, about how she's turned an immigrant's mindset of grit and seeing relentless possibility into a powerful leadership philosophy. This is an unvarnished look at what happens when you decide to own your own identity and become the CEO of your career and your life. This one's for leaders who want to create their own future. So let's get into it. Welcome to Barb's Fresh Eyes. I'm thrilled today to have Tatyana on the show because I have to say, in every capacity that I know you, whether it's as your manager, a mentor, a mentee, a friend, a mother, and now as a CEO, you are both the most loving person I know and the most fiercely uncompromising. And I love how those two things fit together and would love to hear about your journey.
Thank you so much. It is my honor to really be here. And I'm excited and I'm looking forward to having a great conversation with you. So thank you for having me.
Delighted. So let's get started. And where I love to start is to really think about on your journey, in both professionally and life journey, when you look back, what are those moments that you're most proud of that really helped to define the Tatyana that we know today?
Yeah. Well, my immigrant experience, of course, is the first one that comes to mind because that clearly was very formative for me. And so I immigrated to the US when I was 11 years old from the Soviet Union, from Moscow specifically. And, 11 years old is sort of a difficult age to begin with. And so I was already appropriately awkward and now thrown into a new culture, a new team, a new environment, a new language. And a new country. And so with that, everything changed a lot. My parents left a great life and great jobs to start over, at the very bottom and really try to climb their way up under new rules in a new country. And for me, it was a lot of years of figuring out who I was going to become here. And leaving behind who I was in Moscow. And so you brought up the story the other day, which is, I forgot, but legally my name was changed from Tatyana to be shortened to Tanya. And of course, that was with good intention because it can be sort of a nickname to the broader name. And also it was a name that I think folks felt that would be easier to pronounce for me not to stand out. But the irony of that is, you lose a piece of individuality as part of all these changes. And so I didn't know a ton of English. I studied it just a little bit before. I didn't know I was Jewish because it was dangerous to practice Judaism in Russia at the time. And so learning a lot of new information and making a lot of changes at the same time was certainly formative. And I think to this day, I often reflect on why it's important for all of us to still think like an immigrant, right? Because what do you have to do as an immigrant? You have to not be afraid. You have to think like an underdog. You have to think like an outsider. And you have this constant, relentless focus on a brighter future. Because that's what you came here to achieve, is
I think this
brighter future.
This is really a very profound thought. And it might be, you get to choose, but it might be the common thread that I see in your life, right? This relentlessness to a better future.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was taught and learned across, so many different experiences that I had as a child. And my grandmother, who is my mentor and huge influence because she raised me for many years, was the embodiment of it. This woman was the head of natural resource allocation for all of the Soviet Union for 20 years. And then she left it behind because there was a promise for a better future. And then here she came and, she was a babysitter and a nanny, and it was for a better future. Everything she did, and I am in awe of what she was able to accomplish both before coming here and the life that really her and my grandfather led when they were here. I mean, being on welfare and Medicaid. They still saved and they still traveled, and they always lived that, and so that was passed on to me, and I saw how possible it was, and so I have this almost maybe overly positive optimism. And I really believe that you have to create the future that you want to imagine. And so it's our role to do that.
So let's click in one click deeper on this, because I see this little 11-year-old girl, and she's in this project's apartment with her parents, her grandparents. She might be a little hungry because there might not have been quite enough. And she's also learning English and Hebrew and all these other things. Where did that courage, I think it is, to find the focus on the future and see the possible happen? Like, what do you think got you to see that? Because I don't know that everybody does.
You know what? I'm not alone. Like, my story is not that unique. There was a group of us that immigrated to Irvington, Newark, in New Jersey, and so there was a group of us. And one of the women is an incredible pediatric surgeon. A bunch of other people. I mean, she's really world renowned, and a bunch of other people are, doing really meaningful and impactful work. That there was probably about 20 of us that were on this bus that went to Solomon Schechter from Irvington, and it's my experience is not one of a kind. I think all of us felt that we had to realize the opportunity in our lives in order for our parents' sacrifice to be worth what it should be. Like, they couldn't really. It was too late for them, and so they were on a different path of acceptance and sort of doing their best.
Right.
Although I would argue, my parents and grandparents had a wonderful life here with better healthcare, with better everything. And so I think we felt that responsibility is the first thing. I think the second thing is just you appreciate a lot of the things that I am watching my children take for granted in this country, right? There was no land of opportunity in Russia. It didn't matter how hard you worked on something or even how lucky you were maybe to be in a certain place. There were just barriers for different religions, for different cultures, for different families to be able to accomplish that. So I think we sort of relished in this new world of like, you can get to the next place. And I know hard work is not the only thing it takes. And certainly I've been grateful for being at the right place at the right time, having the right mentors and friends that want to see you get there. But hard work really matters.
Yeah.
And in Russia, it didn't guarantee you anything. And so I think that's what fueled us. I think that dream and that possibility was what fueled that group to really to push forward.
So let's bring it forward a little bit to your career and your professional life. And how did that manifest at work? Like, are there moments that you remember where you kind of hit these crossroads and that idea of a possibility was still in your head and drove you forward?
So I think of my career is sort of in two chapters. The first half of my career was me feeling very insecure and not seeing what was truly possible and not believing in myself, frankly, not having that clarity. And so when I graduated Rutgers, I went to work for Emerson Electric for a division of the company in New Jersey. I had a great experience. I learned a ton. The company was going through a lot of change and, kind of cut my teeth into what would be the beginnings of my marketing career there. Then I moved to New York City. I met my now husband, and I worked at a couple of different technology startups. There was one that was a SaaS company back then that was very new and very forward. And the founders did a really great job finding the right operators for that business. But I still didn't feel like I belonged. I still didn't quite feel in my own skin. And so then I went on to work in another technology startup, and there was a woman, who's a dear friend of mine. She was the president of the company and my leader at the time. And she saw something in me that I couldn't see in myself. And so I remember distinctly having this conversation with her. I've told the story many times. And we were talking about, she would always say, you need a 10-year plan for your career, especially at your age, Tatyana, you need a 10-year plan. So she said, what do you want to do? And I said, I'd love to be, like a vice president of marketing. One day I was a director. And she kindly, agreed and said, but I also think there could be more. And, this woman came from Ivy League education and she had this amazing network. And I just didn't see how that could be my path. And she personally helped me get there. So she helped to connect me with my first leader at American Express, and another person that believed in me and took a chance on me. We didn't hire people from Rutgers and Amex at that time very often, right? So then it was mine to win or lose. And so I think of that moment when I got to Amex, I think I started to feel different. I started to feel like more things were going to be possible. And of course, we had this amazing experience there. And I stayed for 9 years. And at the end of that was the next moment of the second chapter, which is when I declared to myself and publicly to others that I wanted to become CEO and that I was going to leave the company to look for that opportunity, which had mixed reviews as feedback, I would say.
But I think that was a really pivotal moment for you because it was a decision and a choice.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it seems like it went back to this notion of owning your own identity. Like they took it from you once. I don't think they were ever going to do that to you again. That sounds.
Yeah, it was, I remember seeing an athlete speaker, and she would talk about how many people, especially for women, want to see you make certain choices and how important it is for you to navigate the right choice for you. And so I think a lot of people at that time of my life wanted me to do a lot of different things. And again, going back to the immigrant experience, you laugh. I don't think I ever told you the story. So I resigned from American Express and I come home to visit my folks and we're having dinner. And so they knew, they were always in the loop. We're very close, but I was like, I have a new job. I'm going to go work at a place for mom. And my mother just started crying. And my father was like, oh my God, like this is awful. They thought it was a horrible decision to leave. American Express is the best company in the country. Like, what are you doing? They were horrified. I mean, truly, they were and it wasn't because they were not supportive. It was because they were supportive in their way. They did not think that risk was the right decision because they had gone through so much pain and so much risk, and they wanted, they thought they wanted something really different for me. And so it was not just colleagues and friends, but it was also my family that was sort of like, what are you doing? But I knew deep down that, I was ready to try something different. It was 9 years.
Yeah. And you got itchy feet, I think. Like I've seen that in you before, right? You had multiple jobs at Amex, including us working together, which was amazing.
Yes.
So that makes sense. So now there's this through line in your stories that I think is appearing where you, again, are always looking for possibilities. But the Tamar story is interesting to me because she opened up the possibility window even broader than you did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So as a leader, how is this now showing up for you?
Yeah, I think it makes you want to do that for others so much, right? So I see a lot of particularly, I focus on women, I think because it's a relatable experience, but there are men that I've worked with that have similar potential, where for a set of circumstances there, I like the way you said that the window is not fully open.
Yeah.
Right. They're kind of peeking in and they're kind of maybe seeing a version of the path, but you have to help them. I mean, one of the presidents at Amex used to say, someone has to see you in a place where you want to be. Yeah. Someone senior has to believe that, you have a greater impact potential. And so I try to do that for other women. I still try to find enough time to mentor women and get involved in organizations that support women. And the conversation I have with them, I mean, I sort of reuse Tara's playbook in many ways because it worked for me, and I hope it works for other people. But one of the first things I say is I set up career discussions that are not work related. So we're not going to talk about your job and how you're performing, which is of course like a gravitational pull for me and also for anyone showing up. But I say, that's for a different conversation. This is really about what do you want to do, and so we focus on what's your 10-year plan, if that's appropriate. And then we work backwards on, okay, is that bold enough? And how do we get there? And what are what's holding us back? I think one of the interesting neurological findings is that we form these neuropaths and it's very hard to undo them. So I find that people get stuck in a specific neuropath and then they can't make a different choice. They can't sort of change course. And so I try to work with them to say, okay, we can find a new neuropath for that. We can approach this differently. And a lot of times people also come back and they say, like, you set me free. Like, I didn't want to climb the ladder. Like, I didn't actually want to do that. And you helped me understand that the answer doesn't have to be, how do you get faster to the top? The answer can and often is, I actually need to make a little bit of a pivot. Or, maybe this is a time in my life I should slow down a little bit because I've got all this stuff going on. And that needs more tending to. So I think the answer is different for different folks.
But how do you help them to get unstuck? Like when we get into those neural pathways that we are kind of set on, how do you kind of shake them out of it? This whole podcast is really about getting unstuck. How do you do that?
Well, so I think you have to remove the external voices to an extent possible. And so I try to create a safe space to say, okay, all those things that you're hearing every day, like, let's either write them down or journal about them, but like, let's get them off of our chest and then put them in a box. And then let's switch gears. And I think in preparation for the meetings, a lot of people write, but the discussion is centered around like, okay, what is it that if no one else was watching, your kids, would be fine and your family would be fine? What would you want to do? What is your passion? Because one of the quotes that, I love and live by is from Steve Jobs, which is, you have to love what you do. That is so, so important. And so I try to get to that root of like, what makes you happy? So I'll ask a lot of probing questions. That's my go-to. I like to interrogate things. And so the whys, the 8 whys, why? And you get to, I like doing that because it makes me happy. And then you're in gold. Then you're like in the right moment. And
that's when the shift happens.
That's when the shift happens. Yeah. Either it's like, oh, that's why I love my job, or that's why I hate my job, or, I actually always wanted to be a lawyer and someone put me on this other path and I'm miserable. Like, that's the moment. I think the truth is in answering that question. What do you love to do? But it's not, you can't just ask that walking in. Like, you have to do all this work up front.
And that's when the shift happens, when they can start thinking about, okay, now I have some clarity about where I want to go. The possibility window is open.
Yes.
And you can start talking about how to get there.
Well, then that's the second part of the conversation. The second part is like, maybe I don't want to say what I love to do because it seems scary because I don't think I'm good enough. Maybe I'm not good enough to do that. Right. So I didn't feel like I was good enough to be CEO. So why would I say that that's my dream? If it's not achievable, then why would I say that? Right. You hold yourself back from even thinking it. I remember I couldn't think it. It took me years to be able to think it first.
Yeah.
Once you think it, you have a chance at saying it. And you know how it is. Women, being an ambitious woman is like not loved in society. People don't love that look. And so I think that's also, I do believe we're getting better at that. But women walking around asking for more money, asking for promotions and saying, I want to be CEO is not commonplace. And so I think that's even harder, right? When it's something really unique and bold. And so that's the next piece is, how do we make you brave enough to be able to get there?
And what is the wisdom of bravery? Like, is there something that you can do for them that they can really, or set them on that path to bravery? Because I don't think it happens like as a light switch. I think it takes some time to get there.
Yeah, look, I think some people have personal experiences that make it a lot easier for them to do that, right? I think especially people that had a difficult childhood for whatever reason, I tend to find those folks are not as worried about losing what they might have or what might be. So they're more open to risk and possibility because there's less fear. However, there is a lot of fear that I see working with folks.
Yeah.
And so in those situations, I think it's two things. One, getting the person to realize that the thing they're trying to preserve, whatever it might be, financial status, respect based on title or whatever it might be, is actually making them miserable.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, I'm holding on to this because it makes me happy. Does it make you happy?
Yeah.
And so I think like untangling that is really, really powerful. If you can really face like, yes, I'm holding on to this because, this title is defining with my peers and that's what it means. But if it doesn't make you ultimately happy, then I think you're willing to let go of it more. Right.
Yeah.
And then it's about small steps. You can't jump into the deep end. So if you're interested in something totally different, can you go volunteer? Can you do a project? Can we do a rotation for you if it's in my company, and if it's someone else's company, like, can you take a class? Now classes are free and available everywhere. So like, how do we get you to dip your toe into that scary new place? And then can you find joy there? Then it's easy. Once you can see that you can find joy, it becomes easy. And one of the things I also say often to my kids and as well as to people I work with is, if you're uncomfortable, you're not working hard enough. You're in the wrong place. Like, most of your day should feel highly uncomfortable. And so you said I get antsy. That's how I always knew.
Yeah.
Like, if I knew what the day brought and I was sort of like relaxed about it, it's time.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be comfortable. It shouldn't be at work. Like, you can be comfortable Saturday night on the couch, but at work, it should feel like growth. 60% new, 60% growth, 40% you're giving back to the company, you're contributing. That's really important, right? Right now, that gets lost in the narrative too. It's like, I want to show up and be promoted tomorrow. It's like, well,
Yeah.
you have to contribute. And we did studies in Amex. I think it takes about 18 months for you to become really able to contribute at your peak after learning the business and the job. And so we want to be contributing at least 40, 50%, and then learning 50 to 60%, something new.
That's amazing. I'd love the stories you're telling and the way you're trying to get people to the next level is at sort of at the individual level. But I think there's some parallels that you're doing, especially at A Place for Mom, at a scaled level. Like, I love the fact that you are referred to as the chief caregiver officer. So when you think about what you're doing in the building, what do you anchor to sort of have that impact at a scale for the leaders on the call that are listening?
Yeah, well, I mean, I am obsessed with what we do at A Place for Mom, right? Because I believe that we are really focused on a critical mission. And so let me just take a step back and kind of share a little bit about the company for folks that might not be as familiar. But A Place for Mom is a platform that caregivers, family caregivers, meaning usually adult children, adult daughters often, come to for advice on how to help navigate the aging journey, specifically how to take care of their parents often, and how to make confident decisions in that space. And so you want to talk about being stuck. This is one of the places that everyone gets stuck in. And it's funny because these are really smart people, and they have done really well in their lives, their parents, their professionals. And then the moment hits, or a set of moments, it's usually, we try to teach people that it's actually a set of moments. It's not one single thing. You just didn't want to see it before.
Yeah.
And you are becoming the parent to your parent. And it is very difficult. And I know you've been through it. And because of the immigration experience, I was, a secondary, at least, caregiver to my grandparents for 20 years, many of those years primary caregiver, but my mom and I took turns. And it was very challenging. I mean, probably 15 plus operations, multiple, endless hospital visits. My grandmother went blind at the end. She had 3% vision in one eye. They had a lot of illnesses as they were aging. And so healthcare system's hard.
Yeah.
Patients get lost, seniors get lost. And the crisis that's happening now is that over 60% of caregivers are women,
right?
Adult children of their parents. And most of them are highly stressed, feel immense guilt, and are paying meaningful financial sacrifice as part of what they have to do, which is they have to work less, find time to take care of mom or dad, often mom or dad-in-law, and still figure out their children and their job. And so they're falling behind on their careers or stepping away completely. They feel constant guilt because they feel like they're failing at that role and also as being a parent and as a spouse. It's just it's a crisis, and so I see it in my role to really bring awareness to this crisis. And the moment of being stuck is, what do I do? What do I do? And they feel alone. And so one of our big mission is like, no one has to do this alone. And so we
Right.
provide variety of resources, not dissimilar to what we just spoke about in careers. Like, okay, how do I get organized? How do I understand my options? What is the checklist? What are the key questions? How do you have the conversation? You asked me about the conversation I'm having with mentors and mentees and colleagues.
Right.
How do you have the conversation with mom or dad? How do you have the conversation with your spouse that we have to take care of mom or dad? And how do we realistically do that?
Yeah.
And so it's a very, very similar experience. It's a moment in life that most people do not plan for in advance, and it kind of stops them in their tracks. And so I love what we do because we provide the support and guidance, and then we try to offer solutions, which are either home care solutions or community living, assisted living solutions, based on their specific needs, and trying to really understand what the family is struggling with and how do they find joy in this difficult time, because it's not just about taking care of mom's new physical ailments or mental needs, but it's also about trying to help her find the joy, because that gives us joy back.
Right. So that's the window of possibility again, isn't it?
The window of possibility, seeing the aging journey as a positive, and finding ways. And by the way, caregivers do this naturally when we study them. They have, despite being exhausted, feeling guilty, going broke, they will say that the caregiving journey is paved with love.
Mm.
And I saw it with my mom and I. It's like the days can be so hard. And then at night, when my grandmother or my grandfather would go to sleep, you'd stand there and you would just feel all this love, and like all the pain from the day kind of dissipates until it starts the next day. But it is underneath all of it. Underneath all of it is love, and that's why it's so hard.
So love is an interesting and curious word to use in corporate America. But when we were talking love, this word comes up a lot with you.
Mm-hmm.
How does it translate to work? Like when you think about love in the work, you talked about what you do for your customer in the end. What about your team? Like how does love manifest for you at work? And then fierceness.
And I use the word love at work. I think it's okay to say love. We love what we do. We love our families. We love our customers.
Right.
We love our employees. I mean, it's okay to feel emotion toward people and really appreciate them. And so I try to normalize talking about, just love in general and struggle, frankly, because it's two sides of the same coin, especially when you care about something, it makes it even more challenging. And so, I find that in my leadership approach, I have this kind of two-sided parts of me. One is I care deeply about the people I work with. I love a lot of the people I work with. I know them for many, many years. I care about them deeply. I want them to be successful. And at the same time, I'm very demanding on results.
Yeah.
And so that kind of threading the needle across those two sides is what I'm always working on. How can I show up with empathy and love and support for people while still not lowering my expectations, because that means a lot to me, and still driving to outcomes and hold people accountable to outcomes, because in the end of the day, the company exists because we're able to achieve our goals. And so, it's something I was already trying to figure out at American Express under a very different culture. I think there was a lot more sort of room for the how, like the way we tried to achieve something was appreciated, because in a big company, that's to be expected. You have to kind of make room for that. And I love that about American Express in many ways. And in a smaller company, a very outcome-oriented environment,
Right.
it's not quite the same. And so I really focus on the results. And our values, actually, now that you're saying it, our values reflect both of those things, right? So we have 5 values that we created when I became CEO. I worked with the team. We did many, many roundtables because it's not your values, right? It's the company's
Right.
values. So our 5 values are mission over me.
Mm,
And that's not just the caregiver's mission, but also our mission as a team. So just because one person or one team may not benefit from a change, the mission of this company comes before that. And that comes before me, before any single person. The second one is hard work. We do hard things. The third one is we drive outcomes as a team, which is important, right? Those 2 things are probably not surprising. We embrace change,
mm,
which is critical in this environment, especially.
yeah.
And then the last one is we win the right way. So integrity and ethics. And so that's the bedrock.
So I want to just go back to the hard work one,
Mhm.
because that's also come up a couple of times today. And it's interesting to me because you framed hard work for me in a really interesting way
Mhm.
a couple of months ago. And what you said is everything we do is probably hard.
Mhm.
Like embracing change, that could be hard. Staying still could be hard.
Yep.
How much of that do you use to get people to embrace change? I think there's a perception that change is so hard, but
Mhm.
how do you use that to get people to embrace the changes you're trying to implement?
I use the term all the time. We do hard things comes up on every other call, every other Zoom I'm on, literally. And I love it because the team is saying it. It's like we do hard things. This is hard. Yes, it is hard. We do hard things. In the end of meetings, when you really crack the nut open on something you figured out, God, we did hard things, right? In the end of big presentations or something, we do hard things, and it really resonates because I think the other tension to your point about like being stuck and unstuck is you have to be true to yourself when picking a company culture. Like you don't come to a place for mom to coast. And I always find it to be my job to talk people out of it when they want to. I'm like, you really have to want to do hard things and drive outcomes and win as a team, all these things that we do. And so I think you have to know that about yourself and the culture that you're stepping into. And so for us, we screen for that in
Yeah.
interviews.
Yeah.
We screen for people. And I ask this question, I'm going to give it away on this podcast, but I ask this question every time. What was the hardest thing that you've done personally or professionally? What was the situation? How did you face it? Always. Because then you can see if they tell the story with dread or excitement. It's not what they're saying. It doesn't matter what the story is. It's how they feel about that moment. And that tells you everything you need to know culturally about how they're going to show up.
Okay. So can
And
you answer that question for me? Like you've mentioned many hard things that you've done, but if you were being interviewed by Tatyana, how would you answer that question? What would you say?
I mean, I think a place for mom has been the hardest thing I've
Hardest
done.
thing.
It's a 6-year journey now, but a place for mom professionally has been the hardest thing I've ever taken on. Right, so I started in September of 2019. 5 months later, COVID happened.
Right.
There's just one thing after another, and we have navigated that many choppy waters, many unexpected difficulties, and certainly becoming CEO of the company has been hard. Um, I take, as you know, the leadership part of it very seriously.
Yep.
It's not lost on me that my decisions impact 1,000 people every single day, and their families and their children. And so, making decisions, I take really, really seriously, and I always think about the people. So it's by far the hardest thing I've ever done. I can't pinpoint to one thing, although if I had to, I do think it was COVID. COVID for a place for mom was awful, right? Millions of seniors died. I mean, for all of us, but
Yeah.
millions of seniors died. Seniors were in the eye of the storm, and we were trying to figure out how to help. We were trying to figure out how to help our teams. We had people that were in the field that were getting sick.
Oh,
We have a team that calls on hospitals. We obviously had customers, the communities that couldn't get access to supplies, that couldn't get access to the medicine that was available or even to test sometimes. And the vaccine when it came out. I mean, all of it.
Yeah.
And, I remember like one of the decisions we made, we had pre-bought TV media. And you're not going to run like, let's sell, senior living right now. And so we donated the media. We made a commercial that said, we support caregivers, family caregivers and healthcare workers. And we ran these really emotional black and white ads, just, paying our respect to all the people that we were watching struggle during that time. And so that year was very hard.
But that I get a little chills when I think of those ads. I still have them in my head because they were beautifully done and they were so spot on in that moment. Like they really helped all of us. Just, I don't think the gift you gave people with those ads. It's really interesting.
Yeah, you kind of felt like, you were just doing what everyone else was doing, but there was nothing else to do. So you have to do it, right? Like, you have to put, one foot in front of the other and make the best next choice, not always knowing where it leads. As a leader, that's so important. You don't always, of course, you have your vision and you're trying to point to the mountain where we're going, but situations like that, you have to put one foot in front of the other, be decisive, and, lead the team. And you have to carry that burden.
Right. It sounds like going to a new school in a new country with a new language, that putting one foot in front of the other. Yeah. Like, it's what you have to do.
Yeah. And believe that there's a better future in front of it. Right. And look at the company. The company's doing great. We've expanded. And by the way, the huge silver lining out of that is we had a tiny home care business before COVID.
Right.
And because we couldn't place folks into senior living communities, at least for a short amount of time, our home care business exploded and we made investments in it and we nurtured it. And I actually stepped in at that time to lead the business because I felt so passionate about it. We were using home care for my grandparents. And I was like, yeah, people are going to want to stay home. And that business has, quadrupled in size and impact. And so now the fact that we're able to offer that across the country, we have national coverage with agencies. We're really proud of that work. And that came out of COVID. I don't know that we would have seen that trend as early because now, of course, everyone's talking about it.
Yeah.
But that was years ago.
That's amazing. Everyone's talking about a lot of things you're doing, Tatyana. You've really set the conversation in a different direction with caregiving and senior lives and bringing it to light. I think it's amazing. So many gifts that you're giving us today, so many beautiful pieces of wisdom. I'm really so grateful for you for joining my show, Barb's Fresh Eyes. Is there one story that we wanted to tell that we didn't tell? Like, did we cover everything?
Yes, your story and how amazing you were as a leader and what a real impact you left on me, because I think it's actually a great example of helping me get unstuck and how small acts of kindness can really make a difference. And so when I worked for you, about 6 months into that role, I had my son, my oldest son, my first child, and I did not know what to do as a mom. And I remember coming into work and we had our one-on-one and I was like a little distracted and you always were so tuned into the EQ and you said, what's wrong? And I said, Ian, Ian has a temperature and it's really high. Ian still to this day runs high temperatures. I think it was like 100, 203. And I started crying as I was saying it. And you said, okay. You turned away from the computer. Temperature is a good thing, Tatyana. Temperature means his body is fighting whatever it is. And, and it was true. I share that with new moms a lot of times. And you said, okay, you get to make a choice. If you want to go home, you can go be with him, or you can stay at work knowing that this is part of the natural cycle. And I thought about it and it's like, well, he's going to get a lot of fevers, I suspect. That's what people say. Might as well give this a go. And, I stayed and I went home and he obviously improved. I don't remember what he had anymore, but being able to be vulnerable with you at the moment and being able to navigate that as a mother and figure out that it was possible to sort of do both things meant the world to me. And so there were many other moments after that where your leadership really made a huge difference, but that one really stayed with me because, it's so personal. So thank you for that. And thank you for the other endless pieces of wisdom that you shared with me throughout our time together, working together and many, many years after. And I hope we stay connected forever.
I'm sure we will. Every time there's like a SaaS or Salesforce conference, I'm pretty sure you and I will bump into each other.
Yes.
So I really can't thank you enough. And there were so many pearls of wisdom that you kind of landed on us. Is there one thing that you really hope that sticks with people the most out of all the things, the possibilities, the act like an outsider, own your identity? Is there the one thing that you think matters most, or is it kind of a potpourri of all of them?
Yeah, look, I think the most important thing is believing in yourself. Somehow through all the different experiences I had, I don't know if it was because of my family or because of other people later, but there was a feeling of believing in yourself. Not always. It's not always on.
Yeah.
But if you can find that and harness that from that place inside of you is where everything else grows. Like from that place, the garden blossoms. And so the more you can nurture that place, the more you can surround yourself with people that see that in you. But also give you good feedback on how to improve and develop. Like that place, that special place of believing in self, is something that no one can take from you. And so I would say try to find that place in yourself and others that see it, and then make those hard decisions from that place.
That's amazing. Fantastic advice. I'm still learning so much from you. So thank you for so much for being
Thank you.
on Barb's
Thank you for
Journey.
having me. I'm so excited that you launched this podcast, and I can't wait to hear and see all the other amazing leaders that you could bring on. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So that was a powerful conversation, something that's definitely going to stick with me. A huge thanks to Tatyana for sharing her stories and her incredible perspective on leadership. It really was a privilege. Okay, now here's your start today moment. The one thing that you can take away from this conversation and actually use right now. Embrace hard things. Ask yourself, what is the hardest thing I've ever done? And what can I learn from how I faced it? That's what Tatyana refers to as the immigrant's mindset. Seeing hard work and difficulty in life not as a burden, but as a door to future possibility. This is your key to finding the future that you want to create. Whatever you're navigating, don't overcomplicate it. Start here and keep leading with fresh eyes.